Hey, it's Larry Sharpe here at FreedomFest, having more great conversations, talking about morals and ethics and values. It's great. I'm very lucky today. I have with me Adrian Malagon, who is the Vice Chair of the Libertarian Party of California. Adrian, tell me about yourself.
Cool. So, Vice Chair of the Libertarian Party of California. I am also the Chair of the California Mises Caucus, and professionally, I am a recruiter. So, we're focused on recruiting, business development, and sales.
That's great. What I want to talk about today is not necessarily libertarian, but more the idea that most people, they kind of lean left or lean right, kind of in their values, right? Whether they're more conservative or more progressive. And I'm not trying to get anybody to be less of either of those or more of either of those.
Sure.
What I'm more concerned about is kind of their ethics, which is whether you lean left or lean right, or somewhere in the middle, wherever you are, when is it okay to use coercion? When is it okay to sanction aggression? And when is it not? And when is persuasion the only way of doing it? Or is it ever okay to use coercion or persuasion? And I kind of want to talk more about that. But to get where that's coming from, I think the basic concept is most people, regardless of where they are politically, they want to be happy. Would you agree with that or no?
Yeah, I agree. I majored in philosophy, so seeking the common good, happiness, I understand. Very Aristotelian.
There we go. Yeah, so most people want to be happy. So regardless of what you think about government policy or any policy, if someone is to physically harm you, hurt you, kill you, whatever the case may be, you're going to be less happy.
I'd imagine so.
Right? You're going to be less happy. But the second part is if someone tries to take your stuff, hurt your stuff, break your stuff, vandalize your stuff, either through theft or through fraud, again, you're going to be less happy, right? I think that's always, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Do you think, I know we think that, but do you think that the average person thinks, I want to be happy. All I want to do is just kind of, don't take my stuff, don't hurt me, and I'm going to go off and try to live my happy life. Do you think most people think that or no?
I think before 2020, I would have liked to say that, yes, most people give them the benefit of the doubt. The trope that we always give as libertarians is that everyone's a little bit libertarian or more libertarian than they care to admit. They just don't know it yet, right? But 2020 kind of changed that for me. I think that doesn't seem to be the case for most people.
So you think people don't actually want to be happy?
I think that they have an idea of what happiness is, but that doesn't necessarily coincide with what the objective reality of happiness should be.
So you think their journey towards happiness is not a real journey towards happiness?
In an objective sense, I think no. So,
okay.
I mean, what I mean is, so Aristotle talks about the good, right? And everyone is always trying to achieve their good. So for instance, if I steal your wallet, I'm not stealing your wallet for the sake of stealing your wallet.
Sure.
I'm doing it because I can't feed myself, I can't feed my family. I'm trying to achieve a good. Now, this is not an objective good. Obviously, stealing is wrong.
Right.
But I'm not doing it for the sake of stealing. Like, that's dumb. Why would I take someone's wallet just for the sake of taking it?
Right.
There has to be an end goal here. So someone's good may not be the good, but they're trying to achieve their good. So I guess someone is trying to achieve happiness to a certain extent, but it might not be. It might be a perverted notion of what happiness is.
Got it. Okay, so let me then postulate, if I could. Everybody wants to be happy, even if they're wrong.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that.
Right, but they still want to be happy.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So like if I steal your wallet, I think, well, now I have the money to give the money to my wife or my kid. That's going to make me happy, I believe, even though I'm clearly incorrect there.
Right.
Okay.
I think outside of some sort of mental deficiency, like being a sociopath or a psychopath or something like that, I think that generally holds true.
So would you agree then that the general rule of if you hurt people and or take their stuff, that people are going to be unhappy?
I think so. Yeah.
And if we take that to the other person, not just ourselves, that's kind of the idea of human respect.
Yeah.
So if we want to have a happier, more harmonious, more prosperous world, we got to worry about human respect.
I think so. The importance of human dignity it's something that's lost now. We have to see each other as human and understand that we can disagree on stuff.
Right.
I think you'll be the first to agree that you've never met two libertarians that agree on everything, right?
You have two libertarians in a room, you got three opinions.
Yeah, and I think that holds true. I mean, we see that across the political spectrum, whether it's Democrats, liberals, progressives, whatever you want, or on the the other side, Republicans, conservatives, and right-wing, there's always some sort of difference there. I don't think two people, but you have to understand and meet people where they're at. Empathy is really important, and that's part of just understanding that we're all human.
So the idea of human respect is, with human respect, we will have more happiness, more harmony, more prosperity. You would agree that's a principle?
Yeah, I would think so.
I think so too. I think it's universal. I agree. Great. So with that in mind, let's go to the next level, which is, are there exceptions? Now you brought the idea of, okay, what if somebody wants to steal a wallet so they can feed their family, that kind of thing. Is there an exception to where, let's say in the case of most Republicans and Democrats, what policy they could put forward? Let's say a Republican is in charge and Republicans want to say, look, we care about the common good. And to make the common good, we believe that we should control who marries who. Right? We should decide who's authorized to be married. We should decide that. And that's going to be good for the public good. Now, if a Republican group puts that out, they're trying to do the right thing. They're not trying to hurt. That isn't their goal. Their goal is good for society, common good. Is there an exception like that you would agree with?
I don't think so, because then we start getting into what is the common good, right? And that's the question that has to be asked. What you believe the common good might be might not be what I believe the common good is. So if we have different goals, it's really hard to establish the common good. And we've seen this throughout history, right? Where we do things for the common good.
Sure.
To use the old trope, Hitler, Stalin, Mao, they all did things for the common good. That was the argument, right? You guys don't understand, but we do.
Right.
And you just kind of have to let us do our thing. And it doesn't matter if millions of people die in the process. That's just kind of one of those. You have to, what's the old adage? You have to break a few eggs to make an omelet.
Right, yes.
And I just don't think that if you have these diametrically opposed views that you can have, while the objectively common good would exist, the minute that you start imposing that on someone, it becomes a problem.
So you're not okay with that idea of government doing that. But the forward part here in this one is, they're not physically saying, we're going to kill you.
Right.
So then, what is the actual harm in them saying, you may not get married, you may get married, you may not? What's the actual harm? How does that harm people?
I mean,
Wouldn't the argument be there's not really any harm, right? I'm just telling who can get married. I'm not killing people.
Sure. Well, I mean, the argument would be made the other way too, right? If two people want to get married that someone doesn't believe should get married, they're not killing people either or hurting people. Now you're just infringing on their right to happiness as human beings. And if we really want to look at each other as human beings and having some sense of decency or dignity, this is something that's really important. When I became vice chair, I got this interesting tweet from someone that said, so I'm a traditional Catholic, and someone, it was a very, they were trying to be respectful, and it was a genuine question. So they were very, very sincere, and they said, how are you going to attract party members how do you feel about the LGBT community? And that's something that's important to me. So I said, I have a lot of friends that are part of the LGBT community. I live in the Bay Area, right? Of California.
Yes, right.
And it's just, you just have to understand and respect the decency of human beings.
Right.
We can disagree on stuff. That doesn't make you any less human. We might disagree theologically or when it means, my values are a little bit different, but it's no different than anything else. When we were talking about the drug war earlier before we hopped on and started recording, right? You don't have to, morality aside, surely we understand that it is not okay to hurt people because they're smoking a plant or do something that's no different than drinking, or like you wouldn't stop someone or tackle them because they're having a drink outside. At least I would hope not. This is Vegas, so here definitely not.
Right.
In some other place maybe, but I think it's just about respecting the human person. You can disagree, and the minute that you start infringing on their potential for happiness, it becomes a problem, because your happiness can't really be based on trying to stop someone else from doing something that's preventing them from being happy, unless it really has some sort of interference with your happiness, right? At least that's how it kind of seems to me.
I like the idea. So what you're saying is, even though they wouldn't be killing people, government coercion would still be making their life worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let me go though to something that may be clearer. I did Republicans and you Democrats. So the Democrats decide, look, this is about lifestyle. This is about lives, actual lives. Guns kill so many people, let's get rid of all the guns because they're killing people. This isn't my opinion on someone's lifestyle. This is people are dying. I want to save lives. And when Democrats come up with these ideas, they're not trying to be bad. No. They believe they're saving lives. Is there an exception in that case? That now we're saving lives, right? It isn't just a lifestyle or a values issue. This is life and death.
Sure. I do think that I understand where that argument comes from, but at what point, the slippery slope fallacy is something that people kind of always disregard as not being as a non sequitur, right? But it's very real, right? So at what point, if we're going to decide that guns are something that are harmful, that legitimately kill people, I mean, so do swimming pools. I mean, how many kids die as a result of lack of supervision in a swimming pool? Or could you imagine the idea of an oven when that was first brought forth?
Sure.
You leave that gas stove. I mean, now they're not all gas and stuff, but could you imagine that being brought forward and saying, this is what, if government regulation were then what it is now, would we have ovens in this other way, or microwaves, or something like that? Cars is obviously, that's a really easy example, but at what point do you say that we're doing this to save lives? At this point, we wouldn't leave the house. We would stay wrapped up in a cocoon. And we tried that, and that ended up killing a lot more people, right? So, I mean, there was that kind of point to it, but I just don't think, I understand that intentions are always somewhat good for the most part. And I do say that, I mean, I think that you would agree that most politicians maybe don't have the best intentions in mind. They like to pretend that they do, and I like to say that they're really malicious people at a certain area.
The average person who's voting for this.
Right.
I agree, many of the leaders have malicious intent. But the average person who's talking to me and you, they think this is a good thing.
They buy into it. I think
100%.
This is what I kind of call, and I don't mean this to be a pejorative, but you have like the useful idiot sort of thing where you don't understand. But it sounds really good. That little 30-second clip or that little that one little branding, whatever it might be, my body, my choice, something as an example, right? That was really interesting. That's not something that we hear very much anymore. But these little catchphrases seem to carry so much weight, and that the average person doesn't want to. If we were to go here, I'm sure that we have a lot of Republicans here, maybe one or two Democrats here. But I'm sure
got the forward party here too.
Right, and you see them, when we're all in these sessions together and doing stuff, and they may not always agree, but we're all here for the same reason, and they do believe in this message of liberty or freedom on some level. Might have different ideas of how to achieve it, but ultimately, I agree.
But let me walk down one more road then, right? Most people, when they vote on it, feel like it's not violence because we voted. So I'm not going to come to your house and take your stuff. These other agents that I voted for are going to come take your stuff, right? Whether it's the ATF or the police or the IRS or the local sheriff, whoever it is, right? Someone else is going to, I'm just going to, look, I voted. And you voted, so, I guess you lose your stuff now. But I don't feel like it's violence because I'm not doing it, and we voted. How do we get past that?
It's just kind of wasn't this the argument during Prohibition or for some of the gang, the high level like mob families? They weren't the ones doing. I mean, you're the New York guy, so tell me, right?
Yes.
Wasn't that the thing? Like, well, I'm not the one doing it. It was, I just assign certain people to do different things. It's no different in this respect, and it kind of reminds me. I did watch the movie that was it Gunpoint. The funny, and that was kind of the same. And the funniest part where I couldn't stop laughing was the guy that was just a citizen that came up, and the guy says, "Well, you're not from the government, right? Like, why are you holding a gun at me and trying to take my money?" And then he whispers something to the government agent, and then he gets an "I voted" sticker. He hands him his ballot.
That's right.
And then it's funny because that's what it is. It's basically just you're washing your hands of this like Pontius Pilate, and it makes you feel good. You're saying, I'm not the one taking your rights away.
Right.
I am voting to let this person take your rights away. And so I wash my hands of this. I just filled out a paper. I'm not the one going to your house, but I mean, there really is some. It's not too dissimilar there. Right, and that's something that we really have to hammer home with people. When you're in this democratic system, you are condoning this, and you're participating in this in some. This is valid by participating in its validity or considering it to be valid. Right, you are now participating in the system. Right.
Well, it's funny when the good guy in the movie gets captured by the bad guy, and he's in front of the bad guy, and he yells at the bad guy, "You're a murderer!" And the bad guy goes, "I'm not a murderer. That's why I have these men." Right. Right? I'm not a murderer. They are, and I hire them, but I'm not a murderer. So yes.
And there's something interesting about that in the law, right? When we see this happening, and it's just, there's always some sort of, and I don't know the proper nomenclature for this, but when someone it's conspiracy or this person did whatever, if you participated in this in any way, shape, or form, when we're talking about legal repercussions, you're also liable. If you planned this thing out, if you gave a hitman money, if you did whatever, you were just as culpable for the most part in most states. Right? There's a reason for that. You're not the one that pulled the trigger. You're not the one that did whatever. Sure. You made the phone call, but this would not have gone into motion without you doing something. And this is no different in a voting sense.
So let me ask then, if we're agreeing that government is also force and coercion, and that the more that we have of that, the less happy people are going to be. I guess what we should be saying is not necessarily what is the outcome, because you've been talking about the intentions are always good, right? So it's not about the intention, but instead, government should be looking and saying, you know what, whatever my goal is or my intention is, I have to measure my actions against the principle of human respect. And if I can't measure it against that, I'm probably making more people less happy. Is that, would you agree with that principle?
I think so. If most people saw it that way, or if more people rather, not even most, but if even more people saw it that way, I think that we would have a little bit more harmony in the way that we approach things, because it all again comes to the compassion point, and it's and that's the kind of trigger that you have to get people to understand. Maj was talking about empathy earlier. And you have to empathize with other people, and it's really funny. I mean, we saw this with someone like I think it was it Jeb Bush? One of his daughters was addicted to opioids and stuff, and so he was very anti this and anti that until he saw, oh, this isn't just a minority issue. This really hits home for me, and that kind of shifted his balance. Like, for all the negative stuff that you can say about Jeb Bush, this was kind of an enlightening moment for him. And it's unfortunate that it took something to hit that close to home, but if we really just look a little bit, regardless of what the issue might be, surely we all know someone that this affects in some sort of, and if that's what it takes for you to understand this on a human level, then I'm okay with that. That just means you probably need to talk to more people or expand your horizon. If you don't think that if you think that you don't know someone that this certain thing that you're for or against, affects in some negative way or positive way, then you probably need to do a little bit more.
You brought up a very good point. We are very divided right now, right? In fact, if you were to bring up something, and I was teasing, I brought up a typical Republican point, a typical Democratic point earlier. I bring that up, and if I'm positive in either one of them, people judge me immediately. And would immediately be angry if I said, you should take all the guns. Oh my God, oh, you're an evil liberal. Maybe, I don't have a reason for that, but maybe I would have a valid argument or reason for that, right? Wouldn't even hear me. You should end, marriage equality is terrible. Oh my God, I'd be judged immediately. I'm a bad guy. No one would even hear me, right? They wouldn't even hear me. I feel like if we use human respect and that principle of human respect of getting people to be more happy, more harmonious, and more prosperous, that's the entryway to kind of break that left-right paradigm. Do you feel that's true or no?
No, I agree. And it comes with listening. And like I said, I live in the Bay Area, so anytime I said something that seemed to be a Republican point or whatever, immediately you have liberals or leftists saying, well, you must be a MAGA Trumper. And I'd say, I'm not. And so I explain I'm a libertarian. I give them a little 30-second elevator pitch. But then they don't know what to do, so then they're not listening to what I'm saying. So instead they continue to argue with me or proceed as if I am a Trump supporter or whatever the case might be. So it's always really funny, and it's because they're not listening. They're so focused on what the answer is going to be or what their response is going to be. So it really, part of the empathy and the respect that we have for one another is you listen, you have this, you can't have a conversation if it's one person talking at another person. I'm assuming your beliefs based on the hat that you're wearing or based on the show that you're watching or whatever the case might be. I need to listen. It's always good to ask questions, just like the tweet that I brought up earlier. He made it very clear, I don't want to sound off coming mean or whatever. This is a genuine answer. So I gave him a genuine response, or just a genuine question, genuine response. We had a conversation. He said, thank you. Got a follow out of it. He was happy. He's like, we'll see what happens with the party. I look forward to, this is good. I feel good about this interaction.
And there's human respect back and forth.
It's just, I always take people, and it's, Twitter is a medium where you have 200 and some odd characters to get whatever point. So not the best medium to get but when someone tweets at something at me that seems questionable, I give them the benefit of the doubt because I like to believe the best about people. Sometimes I'm not as pessimistic as I like to pretend I am, especially regardless, COVID and all that stuff regardless. But it's one of those things where if you're having a conversation, you have a significantly higher rate of return as far as, you may still agree to disagree, but now I understand where you're coming from a little bit more. Maybe I go home and I read a few things or I look up some stuff that you talked about, and now I have a sort of a different outlook on this particular thing. It's not going to change my opinion overnight, but maybe it starts me down the rabbit hole. And one of the first things that I like to give people is Murray Rothbard's Anatomy of the State. And it's always fun to see. I've handed that out to a few friends, and it's really funny to watch them.
But your point is,
doing whatever.
No one's going to read that if they don't respect you. I love what you just said. I will often hand that out. But if someone's like, he's the evil Republican guy, they're never going to read it.
Of course
But if
not.
they go, oh, no, he's just a human being who has his own values.
If we had a conversation where you're saying, I understand, like, I respect you now, that's great. And then I give some literature where if you want to learn a little bit more about what I was talking about and get into a little bit of a deeper rabbit hole, I suggest this 40-page or 60-page pamphlet.
Right.
And they'll often take it and they probably will read it. But if we start going at each other and I call you dumb because you're a Republican or a Democrat, and then you think that I'm just some weird anarchist or whatever, then we're going to talk past each other the entire time. And you can do that for an hour and get nowhere.
Nowhere at all.
Because there's no conversation.
Yes.
You're just talking past each other, and you're always focused on what your response to the thing that you didn't even hear is going to be, right? And that's the problem that we see with this divide all the way across. Libertarians are just as guilty about this, not only within our own circles, but with other people. We 100%. Don't ever approach people. We are often the smartest people in the room. A little biased there, but that's
I'm not fighting you.
It's a problem. It's a problem when it comes to actually thinking that you are the smartest person in the room and thinking that you no longer have to respect this MAGA-wearing person.
I'm glad you brought that up, because it doesn't matter if I am or I'm not the smartest guy in the room. We all need human respect. Right? Maybe you're smarter, maybe I'm smarter than you. Who cares? Right? Doesn't matter. We all need human respect. Absolutely.
And I do think that there's something that you can always take. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how bad the situation is. I think that things are not always just a waste of time. If you're talking to someone that could be the biggest MAGA Trumper supporter, or the biggest AOC loving, and I throw in AOC because she's your district.
She is.
Sorry, my apologies, but I have to deal with Swalwell, Pelosi.
I accept your condolences. Yes.
But it's one of those things where there's always something to learn there. And even if I have the most, it seems like, mind-numbing conversation with someone, they always say something that makes me think about, at least I understand a little bit more where they're coming from, which allows me to approach, maybe not them, maybe this person is too far gone, but then approaching
Someone
a similar
else's.
person, I might be able to take something from that and, maybe I should approach this a little bit differently. I didn't come out calling them stupid or anything, but maybe there's a little bit of a softer approach to this where I can, at the very least, get them to understand my point of view a little bit more.
So,
that they want to be
regardless of your values, leaning more left or more right or more progressive, more conservative, if we start with the principle of human respect, we can make something happen.
Absolutely. I think that that's really important. And it just comes down to human dignity, understanding the person is human. And that's hard these days.
It is. Adrian, thank you so much for talking today.
No, thank you, Larry. I appreciate it.
That's great. Thanks.